Okay, that's great, Khaled. I hope that you're doing well. Okay, can you please open your books, page 118? So, until the rest of your friends join us, we will just start by making a quick revision. In lesson number 3, we have spoken about the landforms and that how the continents of the world are shaped and what are the main features of them, and the meaning, of course, of a continent. We have spoken about that we have great 7 continents in our planet Earth. Most of them are connected, and while they are connected, they have a variety of features, including the Sahara, the mountains, and also the forests. We have spoken first about the desert and what is the meaning of a desert and what are the forms that shape desert. Of course, the desert means a very plain area, treeless, without any planting, and it's featured as having very little rain. And while being in the desert, you can find out we have plenty of shapes like a mesa, mushroom rock, dunes, etc. And of course, the main features that contribute in order to make these shapes are the wind spread, the wind speed, how they are spread, the direction, the quantity of sand, and later we have also spoken about the rivers, and we said that rivers are one main important source for water and also for providing fresh water for agriculture into any civilization. Consequently, where do rivers come from and how they run? Most of the rivers come from highlands and places where there is much rain and they started to flow down into the valley. After that, we've spoken about the icy rivers, glaciers or glaciers. Okay, so they are rivers also, yet they are icy ones. They are in the Arctic and in the very frozen areas. They are consisting of layers and layers of ice pushing themselves toward this down place. Last session we have mentioned the mountains, and we've spoken about how mountains are to be formed. And while formation, of course, this takes millions of years. Some of the earth starts to move, and during so they started to crush themselves into very high mountains. Even the Himalaya themselves were created from the same reason. Some clash between the rocks led to the crust of the earth to be curved, resulting into the mountains. And we have many shapes of mountains according to the way they are made. If there is a movement between a river, if the movement is between two continents connecting together, is there some lava or hot magma beneath them? Is there a water resource between them? So the shape of the mountain will vary according to the feature it has. And today we will start by speaking about the lakes. So landforms around the world. This slide shows some of the beautiful landforms that were chosen in a global poll as new wonders of nature in November 2011. Number 1, the Nuita River in Alaska has formed oxbow lakes. Can you imagine the beauty of that river? See how the river is going? And of course, because this river, we have many small canals in order to provide agriculture in those lands. So some lakes were formed because of this beautiful river in Alaska. You have also Table Mountain in Cape Town, South Africa. If you know Mr. Mark is from this place. So Table Mountain from Cape Town in South Africa. Halong Bay in Vietnam. Did anyone went to Vietnam before?
What, teacher?
Did anyone visit Vietnam before?
No.
It's a great city. The Iguaza waterfalls also in South America, and the highest waterfalls are the Niagara waterfalls in Africa. Chuji Island in South Korea. We have also Komodo Island in Indonesia. Hirsutnensa underground river in Philippines. The Amazon rainforest and river in South America. It's like a dragon. So, simply a lake is a body of still water which usually forms in a valley or in a hollow. In the land, lakes may have fresh or salty waters. Many lakes, such as the Great Lakes of North America, formed as the result of erosion by glaciers and ice sheets thousands of years ago. However, there are also other ways that lakes may be formed. For example, here in front of us we have the Nwitna River in Alaska is an oxbow lake. This forms when a river forms a U-shaped bend called a meander. Then later cuts straight across the bender, leaving a U-shaped lake behind, like this one. Kyokocha in Ecuador also is a crater lake. Crater lakes form when water collects in a crater on Earth's surface. Lake Taganyako, on the other hand, is formed in the Greek Rift Valley in Africa. This lake was caused by falling cracks that forms as a result of forces deep beneath the Earth's crust. The Dead Sea. It's in Jordan, and I believe some of you have seen it. Even you, Hussein, you went to it,
yes,
right?
I saw it.
Yeah, the Dead Sea in Jordan, guys, is a salty water lake. It loses a lot of water by evaporation, so it unfortunately keeps getting salter. Lake Norton in Africa Rift Valley is another saltwater lake. However, its saltness comes from the volcanic spring that feeds salt and other minerals into the lake. So, simply, lakes are huge places where water gathers and stays together, and it could be fresh water or even salty. 1. Tomorrow, Khalid Al-Malki. The project presentation will start tomorrow. Okay, let's watch a video about the lakes.
The Great Lakes have always fascinated me.
Your screen is frozen.
Why haven't you told me?
Now I realize.
Okay. Can you see it now?
Loading.
Yes?
Yes.
The Great Lakes have always fascinated me. I'm biased since I live near one of them. And because of my bias, that's what this video is about. Time to learn some important facts and just general 101 on the Great Lakes. For those who don't know, the Great Lakes are a group of closely connected freshwater lakes in North America. They are generally considered to be 5 lakes: Superior, Michigan, Huron, Erie, and Ontario. Lake St. Clair, Nipigon, and a bunch of smaller lakes are a part of the same system, but are not considered to be Great Lakes. Sorry guys. They were formed from receding glaciers during the last ice age 12,000 years ago. In terms of Earth's history, they're practically brand new. The lakes are unique because there is nothing quite like them on Earth. They are the largest freshwater lake system on the planet, so big that they're practically like seas. If you live on their coast, you would see, the similarity. They're not seas though. Many think this is because lakes are freshwater and seas are salty, but that's not the case. This is because of 2 factors: elevation in relation to the ocean. Seas like the Caspian or Black are at sea level, which is pretty obvious, while lakes such as Superior are higher in elevation, Superior being at 601 feet above sea level, while the Caspian is at 92 feet below sea level. The next factor is relation to the ocean. A lake is a body of water surrounded by land. Technically, that would make the Caspian a lake, but there's the elevation factor. The Great Lakes, while large, don't connect to the ocean in a way to categorize it as a sea. So they're very sea-like lakes. They're not seas, they're lakes. Sea, lake, redfish, bluefish. All these lakes are a part of a single waterway, connected either naturally or by man to be one of the most important transportation systems in the world. Used by native tribes, Europeans, and later the United States. In the 18th century, the Great Lakes were crucial to expanding and building the early U.S. Like how the railroad built the West, the lakes built the Midwest. Shipping and trade propped up cities along the coast, such as Cleveland, Detroit, Toledo, and Chicago. Michigan and Ohio fought a war against one another over an area called the Toledo Strip in order to gain more coast of Lake Erie. Even though today the area is considered a rust belt, this used to be the core of the United States. Most of Canada's population lives in the Great Lakes watershed, with cities either on the coast of the lakes or on rivers connected to them. Very few live on the coast of Lake Superior, though. It lies on the Canadian Shield, which makes farming difficult. Lake Superior is the largest of them all, being the largest lake by surface area, second largest if you count the Caspian as a lake, and third largest in volume. By area, it's the size of Austria. Even if Michigan and Huron were defined as one body, Superior would still be larger in terms of volume. Lake Michigan and Huron surround the lower peninsula of the state of Michigan, forming the distinct oven-mitt shape. They're actually one single lake called Michigan-Huron. Both are connected to one another, and were mistakenly named separately, the western portion being called Michigan, and the east called a Huron. If corrected, it'd be the largest lake in the world by surface area. Lake Erie is the smallest in volume, but is shared by many different cities: Detroit, Toledo, Buffalo, and Cleveland, to name a few. In recent years, due to outsourcing, these once industrial cities have begun to fall to urban decay. Lake Ontario is the smallest in surface area. Toronto sits on its coast. While the Great Lakes are extremely large and make up a prominent feature on the North American map, they are not the only freshwater lakes on the continent. Canada is home to almost 3 million freshwater lakes. Great Bear Lake and Great Slave Lake are larger than Lake Erie, and Lake Winnipeg is larger than Lake Ontario. In recent years, pollution and invasive species such as Asian carp have put the ecosystem of the Great Lakes at risk. In fact, an algae bloom fueled by pollution in Lake Erie made the drinking water too dangerous to consume for a few days. I would know. I was there. The issue of conserving these lakes will become an important topic in upcoming years. For a water system that contains 21% of the world's freshwater, it will be interesting to see how human development affects the Great Lakes. fishing, and trade are still vital to the economies of this region, as well as the water from these lakes is crucial to the United States. Want to know more about a specific region of the world or the U.S. in general? Say in the comments, like on Facebook, and subscribe if you have not done so. This is Cody from Geography Hub.
Alright, so now we have known everything about the lakes. Is there any question about lakes any further? Before we start with the climates, is there any question about lakes? Yes, Hussein?
When are we gonna present the social studies project?
All the project will start from tomorrow till Thursday.
Okay.
Alright, so moving to lesson number 4.
Oh,
yes.
Wait, teacher. For the okay, I did the social studies PowerPoint, but for English I did an essay. So do we like read the essay out here?
Yeah, and I'm gonna ask you about it.
Okay. So I present the PowerPoint and read the essay.
Yes, I'm gonna ask you about it. So
okay.
You need to summarize yourself, not just to copy paste. Yeah, Thamer, what's the question?
What did you say? I didn't hear you.
Starting from tomorrow, we will start by presenting the presentations for the project.
Presentation about what?
Project.
Yes, I sent you the project. Did you see it?
Oh my God. Yeah, you're gonna present it starting from tomorrow till Thursday. After Thursday, no one will be allowed to either present or to send me anything.
I have to present my project.
Yes, you have to.
And when can I do that?
Starting from tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Alright. The next lesson we will speak in it about the climates and also the ecosystem. So, what is the meaning of climate? What is the meaning of an ecosystem? Simply, that's the planet Earth, as you can see. These are the main 7 continents in it, and all of them has a different features regarding to climate. Climate means the amount of temperature that a place obtains, the amount of temperature that a place contains. Usually in the north of the hemisphere and the very south of the hemisphere, the temperature is very, very cold, especially in the Arctic Circle and Antarctic Circle. Both of them, they are frozen, so the temperature is below the 0 Celsius. On the other hand, in the tropical of Cancer and also the tropical of Capricorn, both of them, they have a moderate temperature. But in the equator, it's very, very hot. So we have northern hemisphere and southern hemisphere. The equator in the middle, and the equator because the sun rays are falling directly to it. So all places regarding to the equator, they are very, very hot. And the climate is very hot in them. And of course, because there's a lot of rain also, then we will have humidity because we have the rainforests also in the equator. In places like the tropical Cancer and the northern hemisphere, the temperature is a little bit moderate because they are a little far from the equator, but not too far. On the other hand, 60 degrees north till 90 degrees north, you will find out that the temperature is falling very, very quickly, and that everything becomes icy. And the same thing is to be applied to the southern hemisphere. To start with, we will speak about the biomes and the ecosystem.
Biomes and ecosystems. The plants and animals of each climate region form interdependent communities. The community of plants and animals that live in a particular environment is known as a biome.
Please highlight this. The community of plants and animals that live in a particular environment is known as a biome. Underline that or highlight these two lines. The community of plants and animals that live in a particular environment is known as a biome.
The kinds of plants and animals that live in a biome depend on the following factors: temperature, soil, and the amount of light and water.
So simply from one place to another on Earth, you will find out that there are some specific animals living in certain places. And those animals are totally living in that place because of some features that that place obtains, like its temperature, its soil, and also the amount of light and water in that place.
Within each biome, there are many ecosystems. An ecosystem is a system of living and non-living things in a particular environment.
Highlight that also, please. An ecosystem is a system of living and non-living things in a particular environment. So, what are the animals, plants, and even microscopic creatures that are living in a place? And how they are living, that's called the ecosystem. There can be
many different ecosystems within a biome. Classifying biomes.
There can be more than one ecosystem within a biome. So if I ask you if there is only one ecosystem within each biome, true or false, then the answer is false. There are many ecosystems within a biome.
In this lesson, we will look at 4 main biomes: desert, tundra, forests, and grasslands. However, within each of these classifications, there are many more precise biomes. Look at the key to the map on pages 120 and 121. Each of the 12 climate zones is a particular biome, and some scientists can further divide them into even more.
So, for example, in this graph in front of us, we have a tundra, we have a coastal forest, we have the temperature, deciduous forest, we have the woodland, shrubland, the savanna, the tropical dry season, the tropical dry forests. So, because of the temperature of the place, and of course, this is because how the sun is shown upon that place. So, the temperature plays an important role in number 1, the climate, number 2, the humidity, number 3, the rain, and all of this will lead into the ecosystems and the different shapes and forms of animals that can live in one specific biome. We have spoken before about the desert. Yes,
What is the presentation of the project?
For the last time, guys, the presentation for the project will start from tomorrow till Thursday.
Teacher, do you do first the English or the social? I did only the social.
Just present what you have finished, but you need to finish both presentations by this Thursday. Any further delay will not be accepted for any reason. Okay? So we have already spoken about the desert and that the deserts are formed because of the lack of rain, and that there are many forms of features inside the forest, and it's totally dependent about the wind and its direction and the amount of plants in that place. And also they play an important role to make the dunes and
desert
mesas so far.
Earlier, you learnt about deserts as landforms. However, Desert is also a type of biome. Deserts have extreme temperatures, very hot or very cold, and almost no water. True deserts receive less than 25 centimeters of precipitation each year. The soil is very sandy or rocky and of a poor quality for plants to grow. As a result, plant life is sparse in the desert. Some desert plants, such as cacti, store water in their roots or leaves. Others have seeds that remain dormant for a long time to survive from one rainfall to another. Not many animals.
So, although that desert lack rain and water very much, yet some plants and some creatures within the desert have already adapted to that circumstances and that feature. Consequently, you will find a plant like the cacti store the water in its roots. Other have seeds that remain dormant for a long time. Other animals like the camel, for example, can live for 30 days without drinking. So the creature within a biome just try to adapt to its circumstances and feature. And this is the dunes in Rab al Khali desert in Saudi Arabia, by the way. That desert is existing here in Saudi Arabia.
Animals can survive desert conditions. Desert animals are usually nocturnal, active at night. To avoid activity during the daytime heat, they may hide in the shade or burrow underground. Small. They don't get enough food and water to reach larger sizes. Smaller animals can also hide and find shade more easily. Able to survive without drinking. They can get water from their food. Examples of desert animals include spiders, scorpions, snakes, crows, and vultures. Polar regions. Polar regions are an icy type of desert. They have heavy snowfall and big stretches of ice, also called ice deserts. Almost no plants can grow here. Some animals, such as polar bears and penguins, are adapted to living in this environment. The Arctic Circle is a polar region.
So we have many types of desert, not only the desert that exist here in Saudi Arabia, but also there are some polar regions. These regions are also a type of desert, yet on the other hand, they are not hot, they are very, very cold. And that's, of course, because of the temperature in that place. So, any questions so far about the desert and the polar regions? So of course we have different natural features that can affect each biome. So let's see this quick video about them. Can you see the screen, grade 8? Can you still see the screen? Hello?
Yes, teacher.
Okay. course, as you can see here, we have some mountains, some forests.
When you look at pictures of Earth from space, what's the first thing that you see? A blue marble, as some have described it. A water world, where oceans and swirls of white cloud dominate. But most of us will then have our attention drawn to the shapes imprinted on its surface, the continents. And they come in many colors. The white of Antarctica, the beige of the Sahara, the light green of grasslands, and the darker shades of our planet's forests in their many forms. So many of these colors that give the world its look are the result of trillions of individual plants growing upon the surface. Which plants grow where is determined by many factors, with climate being the most dominant. Desert and scrubland, savanna, prairie and steppe, tundra and taiga, woodland and rainforest. They are at the base of almost every food chain of every animal, the habitats that sustain all of the life forms and ourselves. Collectively, they are known as the biomes, the living landscapes of Earth. Landscapes have been an inspiration to us for centuries, the subject of countless painters, writers, photographers, and movie directors. The natural vistas of our home countries and foreign lands, perhaps more than anything else, determine that area's character. And whilst these landscapes are shaped underneath by topography, the presence of coastlines, hills, and mountains, their surfaces are defined by the degree of plant life growing upon them. Earth's vegetation is almost infinite in terms of the variety of species that grow upon it. As plants are wholly dependent upon liquid water, what type of species grow where is determined primarily by annual patterns of temperature and rainfall in that area, the local climate. An abundance of heat and water produces the greatest growth potential, such as in the tropical rainforests, while lower temperatures or rainfall reduce such growth and shape the plant life in various ways so that it can survive drought and frost. The main groupings of plant varieties in this regard can be thought of in the following way. Trees, from the coniferous evergreens of the boreal forests to mixed temperate woodlands and the evergreen broadleaf forests of the tropical regions. Shrubs, occurring in almost every climate zone, either as a junior partner in forests or dominant as they are in semi-arid areas such as the Mediterranean. Grasses, again, occurring in almost all areas, but known especially in their singular biomes of the tropical savanna and the temperate prairie and steppe. Desert adaptations, with cacti being the most well-known. Very cold adaptations, such as found in tundra. These adaptations span the basic classes of plants in terms of evolutionary heritage. For instance, the class of flowering plants known as angiosperms are found in every category as just described. The term biome is often confused with the concept of a climate zone, but these are different in nature. A climate zone is defined simply by the patterns of temperature and rainfall, and these are discussed in detail in my Secrets of World Climate series, which you can find linked top right. Biomes are the adaptations of plants principally influenced by climate zones, but by other factors also. Perhaps the most interesting of these is the different ways in which plants evolve in the same climate types, but isolated on different continents. For instance, eucalyptus forest dominates the eastern seaboard of Australia, which has the same humid subtropical climate to that of the southeastern United States and of southern China, and yet we do not find eucalyptus in those other continents, but instead oaks or bamboo. In the opposite way, many species have adapted to live in multiple climate zones. For instance, the pine tree family can be found from the subarctic to the tropics. Another influence is the type of soil that might be present in a region, from sand through to silt and clay. As the soil affects drainage of water away from roots, this affects what species will be present within the same climate zone, since plants have different sensitivities in this regard. So climate zones and biomes should never be thought of as synonymous. In fact, the subject of biomes is significantly more complex because of life's way of evolving along different paths, through random mutations when presented with the same external conditions. This complexity is evidenced by the many different attempts to classify geographical distribution of biomes over the last century and a half, with varying degrees of consensus. By comparison, climate classification has been dominated by a single figure in all this time, Vladimir Koppen. On that subject of climate, let's return to that and focus on how and why exactly differing patterns of precipitation and temperature can so markedly affect the type of vegetation covering an area. In the 1940s, Leslie Holdridge developed this graph showing how a combination of temperature and rainfall could produce the different biome types observed across the planet.
So the form in front of you tells us about how temperature can actually affect very much in making a biome. So temperature is one of the most important things about contributing in making a biome.
In what he called life zones. At first, this looks like a beast of complexity, but if we break it down, it will make sense. From top to bottom, we have increasing temperature, either from the poles to the equator or the tops of mountains to the sea. On the right side of the triangle, we have annual precipitation, from dry in the center to wet on the right. The combination of temperature and rainfall yield a factor called the Aridity Index. It is actually the ratio of potential evapotranspiration to total rainfall. Evapotranspiration is the combined effect of direct evaporation of water from the soil, plus the outward transpiration of water from plants through the gas exchange cells in their bodies. Potential evapotranspiration is the maximum possible amount of water lost in this way, assuming that there would be a limitless amount of water available. The highest temperatures combined with the lowest rainfall produce the highest aridity index, and this is where we find deserts capable of supporting little, if any, plant growth. Both cooler temperatures with weaker sun and consequent low evapotranspiration, or a wetter climate alike, allow for plants and soil to retain more moisture and thereby increasing plant growth. And so at the opposite end, we find rainforests, either of the tropical or temperate variety. This concept is key in understanding how regions with differing rainfall and temperatures lead to different types of vegetation. It's not simply about which areas have more or less rain. Take, for example, the boreal forests, which have a similar total annual rainfall, to the semi-arid Sahel just below the Sahara Desert. Totally different biomes despite the similar rainfall totals. But because the boreal forests are much cooler, they can retain more moisture, leading to extensive biomass, whereas plants and soil in the hot Sahel lose much more moisture in comparison, leading to stunted shrub-like vegetation and plenty of bare earth. In this series, we're going to use the recent classification known as LONS 08, based on Dorman and Sellers' work of the late 1980s. This global map shows the 13 different biomes delineated by this classification. Starting at the equator and moving roughly outward toward the poles, these are summarized as follows. Tropical evergreen forest, where tropical heat combined with year-round rain permits broadleaf trees to retain their leaves permanently. Tropical seasonal forest, where tropical wet and dry seasons cause broadleaf trees to lose their foliage in the dry season. Savanna, where the tropical dry season is of sufficient length or severity that trees are largely replaced by grasses. Shrubland, where the challenges of wet and dry seasons in both the tropics and more temperate latitudes lead to a domination of shrubs interspersed with grasses. Semi-desert, similar to shrubland, but where the aridity index is so high that hardy shrubs or specially adapted families such as cacti can grow. Desert, where the climate is so dry that virtually no vegetation is possible. The biome of bare earth. Prairie and steppe, where a lack of rain combined with cooler temperatures in the mid-latitudes prevents tree growth and allows grasses to dominate. Temperate forest, the classic broadleaf woodlands of the mid-latitudes, whose trees lose their leaves in winter.
So all of these different biomes are only affected or exist because of the difference in the temperature on planet Earth, from the desert to the savanna to the tropical to the cold areas in the Arctic and Antarctic, and also the climate and the altitude and longitude also affect them. Any questions so far, grade 8?